There was a fire at home. My biased parents only saved my sister because she's the one they're favoring. If I envied her enough, she'd get a chance to wish for her cancer to be cured. Unaware, I became part of their twisted game and was left to die painfully in the fire. After being reborn, I saw their true colors and decided not to compete for their affection anymore. I told my mentor I decided to go abroad. But this time they panicked. My mentor was excited and quickly got my papers sorted out. They'll be sent in 3 days. Just sign and you're good. But are you really ready to leave your family behind? My mentor knew how much I cherished my family. Back when my thesis was about to be published, many labs invited me. My career was ready to take off. But I gave it up to be with the family I've been separated from for so long. Now I said I wanted to leave. No wonder my mentor was puzzled. But I said once he heard my story he'd understand. A month ago our house caught fire. Despite my room being closest to theirs, my parents rushed to my sister's room first. They carried her out while I was left behind. I thought they'd come back for me, so I hid in a corner and called them. The busy tone echoed as the fire grew. I was terrified and tried to escape, but a beam pinned me down. My skin cracked, sizzling like roasting meat. I saw my parents outside watching me, letting me die. Why? I'm your daughter too. Why save only her? I screamed in agony. They looked down on me and revealed a cruel truth. You're dying anyway, doesn't matter if we tell you. Your sister is using you. She just needed to gather enough envy points to exchange for a wish. Emily succeeded now. My mom excitedly hugged Emily. Quick, Emily. Exchange your wish to cure your cancer. Happy with a healthy body, Emily made her wish. I was discarded after fulfilling my role. They sent me to the hospital but didn't even try to save me. I died slowly from burns and decaying flesh. Reborn, I wanted no part of this fake family game. Mom, Dad, I'm leaving. Take care. My mom panicked, grabbed my hand. Jessica, you just came back. Why leave now? My dad couldn't sit still, chiming in, yes, you're the daughter we searched for tirelessly. We haven't made it up to you yet. I wouldn't believe a single word. Having thought I was an orphan my whole life, when they found me, I learned they lived just miles from the orphanage. They visited a nearby church weekly for 20 years, yet never found me. My sister Emily, in tears now, said, Sister, is it my fault? I know I'm not really their daughter. I won't compete with you. If you stay, anything you want goes. I watched her, wondering why I'd never noticed her cunning nature before. She claimed she'd let me have my way, but on my first day home she set me up. Hungry from the trip, I ate a piece of cake from the table. She came in crying that I stole from her. Now that the real daughter is here, there's no room for me. I'm leaving. Her tears were like a tragic scene, and my parents glared at me. I was stunned. It was just cake, no name on it. Why couldn't I eat it? This isn't about eating. My mom comforted a hurt Emily. You're our biological daughter, but Emily's been with us for years. Can't you accept her? My dad warned, you've returned, so act like it. Don't bring that orphanage jealousy stuff here. One step into this house and I was angrily scolded. From her mother's embrace, Emily gave me a taunting smile. The game began then. I was only back to be a pawn for her points. Now, faced with her fake tears, I pushed Emily's hand away, feeling nothing. You're all fine, but I want to continue my research, I said. My mom held on, no need to rush out. She glanced back at my dad. My dad, anxious, couldn't come up with an excuse, at least eat dinner first. I looked at the table full of dishes, drained. Out of 10 or so dishes, not one I liked. What a coincidence. It was always like this before too. Emily liked spicy food, so we all had to eat it. When the house got redecorated, we followed Emily's tastes. Emily wanted a dog, and we all had to learn about dogs and adjust. The entire home revolved around her. Even the housekeeper got it. She's the real princess here. Let her have her way. I once couldn't understand why my parents catered to her. Now I get it. Go ahead, have it all. I don't want any of that so-called parental love. I moved back to my lab's dorm that day. Too, when my colleagues saw me, they awkwardly stood up. We thought you weren't coming back, so we took over your bed. I understood. Everyone thought an orphan like me suddenly getting a pair of high society parents would mean I'd be thrilled and never return. When I moved out of the dorm that day, they were all envious. Wow, Jessica, you're off to live a good life. Don't forget about us poor colleagues. I wanted to say I wasn't really living it up, I felt like I was walking into a disaster. No worries, I just came to grab some stuff. Xiaomei quickly brought out a big box. We packed all your things for you. Oh, and there are lots of important memories in there, so we kept them safe for you. While speaking, she handed me a delicate photo frame. Looking at that picture, my eyes stung a bit. Even on the day I was welcomed back, my parents put my sister in the center and I was just in the background. They said they'd throw me a big welcoming party but ended up only buying a dress for my sister. She showed up all glammed up while I arrived in jeans and a t-shirt, clueless and mocked as a bumpkin. Why didn't you dress up for such an important occasion? Did you think this was the orphanage you lived in? A country bumpkin is a country bumpkin. Even if brought back, still unpresentable. Those words lingered, and the incident was trending on social media that day. That night, when my mom checked her feed, she saw the trending post but chose to ignore it. Instead, she gossiped with her friends about her beautiful daughter. Our Emily looked stunning in that outfit. So many people told me today that they want to marry her. But marrying our Emily isn't that easy. In the future, I want to find the best family for her. Her friend asked, "What about your other daughter?" She didn't reply, just snorted disdainfully. I was right behind her at that moment. While she didn't say a word, it still hurt deeply. When she noticed me, she didn't think anything was wrong. Instead, she grabbed my hand to discuss. "Your story is blowing up online. I checked and it's got a ton of views." I didn't expect her to help, but maybe she could at least say don't worry about it. Instead, she said, "Why don't you make an appearance and bring Emily with you?" I was taken aback. "What do you mean?" "You know, your sister always wanted to get into showbiz. We spent a lot of money, but she's still not popular. Why not use your current fame to boost her?" It was the first time my mom held my hand so gently just to help my sister. And she wanted to use my pain to pave the way for her? I'm human. I can feel hurt and sad too. I refused because it would badly affect my career. Then they started trying to change my mind. At this point, my sister cried, "It's fine. If my sister doesn't want to, then forget it." The moment she shed tears, my parents were upset and began blaming me. "You're the older sister. Shouldn't you help your younger sister?" My dad even slapped me. "How did we raise someone as selfish as you?" Now I feel nothing. I packed my things and left. As soon as I got out, their call came through. "We went to your dorm. Where did you go?" I wasn't at the dorm at all. "Where are all your things?" "They're useless, so I threw them away." I casually tossed the photo into the trash. "You ungrateful child." My mom snapped over the phone. "Are you throwing a fit because I bought Emily something and not you?" I said no. I won't compete with her for attention ever again. I'm curious, if I stop competing, what will your beloved daughter do? But that's none of my business. I found a hotel to rest a bit. Upon entering, I saw an auntie busy cleaning. She looked a bit awkward when she saw me. "I'll finish up soon. Can you take a seat for a bit?" Since I had nothing better to do, I found a spot and sat. As she made the bed, she said, "Every corner needs to be neat so it's comfy for you to sleep." I asked casually, "Auntie, do you always take things so seriously?" "Because I have a daughter your age. She travels a lot for work, and seeing young folks like you feels like seeing my daughter." She rambled on about taking care of myself out there. "Otherwise, your parents would be heartbroken." I was speechless, my throat felt tight. In the end, I just let out a bitter smile. My parents? They wouldn't care. Growing up, I thought I was an orphan. Seeing others with parents made me envious. Watching one group after another at the orphanage get adopted, I hoped one day my parents would come for me with open arms. When the director gave me the news, I had left the orphanage 10 years earlier. But I was still thrilled. That night I couldn't sleep, imagining scenarios in my head. Would they hug me? Would they cry tears of joy? Should I say something to lighten the mood? But when we actually met, they just gave me a cold glance and turned away. They asked the director, "Is that her? Is she Jessica?" Their tone was so flat, like picking out an object, and an undesirable one at that. The director comforted me. "It's the first meeting. Feeling awkward is normal. It'll get better with time." I wiped away my tears. On the journey, I was cautious and anxious. I wanted to speak up, but it just felt too awkward. The tension in the air was suffocating. I kept fiddling with my hands, trying to relieve some stress. As soon as I got home, before I even had a chance to steady myself, my sister came out carrying a bunch of bags, crying to my parents, "Now that you have her, you don't want me anymore. Why should I even stay here?" I'm giving up my room for her today. My parents tried to calm her down and then glared at me, saying if they'd known it would be like this, they shouldn't have asked me to come back and cause trouble. You'll be sleeping in the guest room tonight. Don't even think about taking Emily's room. At that moment, I was at a loss. I was so full of grievances. This was supposed to be my home, my parents, so why did I feel like an outsider? The guest room was basically just a slightly better storage room. The musty smell hit me as soon as I walked in. The perpetual dampness had given me severe arthritis. But I stayed there for 3 years. I thought, after all, blood is thicker than water, and they'd eventually love me one day. But in the end, it was just a joke. Auntie was still busy, and after making the bed, she washed my dirty clothes. I told her not to bother, but she wouldn't listen. Seeing this scene reminded me of my dorm mates' parents, who would always do something for their child when they were visiting. They were worried their child might be suffering away from home. Sometimes they'd even bring us some tasty food, asking us to take extra care of their kid. That girl has a bad temper, please be patient with her. When they said that, their eyes were so gentle. I envied it so much. I really wished for that kind of family connection. Watching Auntie bustling around for me, it was like seeing the mom I had always imagined. Kiddo, what's wrong? That word, kid, broke my composure and I couldn't stop the tears from falling. All these years, all I ever wanted was to be a kid just once. I waited and waited, only to be let down again and again. This time I wouldn't let it happen. I called my advisor. I want to leave tomorrow. Is it because he could hear my tears and he understood? He sighed. I told you a long time ago that your parents weren't great, but you wouldn't listen. All right, come over tomorrow. You still need clinical experience for your final approval. I'll get it processed for you. You can leave by tomorrow afternoon. I rushed to the hospital. As soon as I reached my advisor's office, I overheard a doctor complaining about the difficult patient in room 301. It's just a bit of pain, and she's howling so loud the entire floor can hear. They act like if we can't fix this, they'll tear down the hospital. Can't stand it, they're acting like lunatics. That guy was technically my senior. Since I needed a signature for my clinical experience, I tagged along. I hadn't even entered the room when I heard a voice I knew all too well. Oh my poor baby is suffering. I'd recognize that voice anywhere. It was my mom. She was tenderly brushing my sister's face. Oh, look how much weight she's lost. It breaks my heart. My dad was sighing on the side. The sight left my senior speechless. Are they serious? It's just a couple of bouts of gastritis. Who hasn't had that? Acting like it's the end of the world. Plus, they nag the nurse every 3 minutes and the doctor every 5, and they're demanding a pain pump. It's insane to them. Seeing their precious daughter suffer was the end of the world. I remember once I accidentally pushed her, and she scraped her knee. My parents chewed me out for hours. Now it's the same. If their daughter is ill, somehow it's my fault. If she hadn't left, you wouldn't be feeling sick right now. It's all that Jessica's fault. Yes, she's the one to blame. My dad didn't hold back. If we'd known, we wouldn't have had her come back and upset Emily. My senior was shocked. What kind of parenting is that? Even favoritism doesn't justify this level of behavior. I'd become immune by now. On my way over, my advisor had already told me how my parents badmouthed me and my character. They said when I was in the orphanage, I liked to snatch things from others and often got into fights, warning my advisor against trusting me. Actually, our younger daughter has a real talent for this stuff. How about I introduce her to you, Professor? And they sent my advisor a paper. My advisor was furious. Do you take me for a fool? That paper was clearly written by Jessica. You're plagiarizing. For their daughter's future, my parents were willing to scheme something like this, disregarding their dignity. What wouldn't they do? I entered the room with my senior. They were about to lash out at him, but when they saw me, they switched targets. My mom lunged at me, pulling my hair. You left on purpose, didn't you? Do you know it's because of your selfishness that Emily is lying in bed now? My mom only stopped her outburst when she noticed the white coat I was wearing. Are you really? I didn't have the time to process their shock. I simply told them their beloved daughter's gastritis was nothing serious, so stop harassing our medical staff. What do you mean it's nothing serious? Are you just jealous and being dismissive because of how we dote on her? My dad demanded, full of authority. My daughter is in pain, and no matter what, you have to give us an explanation today. Gastritis is indeed nothing serious. This is my specialty. But if you insist on something more serious, well, there is that. I handed them a report, but that's the concern of the oncology department. What? You must have considered this possibility too, right? They knew all along yet still put on an act. So I laid it out: it's liver cancer, advanced stage, untreatable. They were in complete denial, convinced that with enough money, there'd be a way. Get it treated now. For seriously, with how advanced technology is these days, there definitely should be a cure. If you guys won't treat him here, we'll just go find another hospital. My dad was ready to get me discharged on the spot. I didn't really care, leaving was fine with me. But my senior couldn't help but chime in: we're the most authoritative when it comes to treating liver cancer. I bet if we can't handle it here, you won't stand a chance at any other hospital. Hearing that, my mom lost it. She rushed over, clutching my hand like she'd gone mad, and kept saying one thing over and over: you need to compete for our love just a little. Got it? You think it's not enough, huh? Well, let me tell you, after you left, I completely redecorated Emily's room. It's all princess themed, just like she wanted. I even bought her a sports car in pink. And remember that necklace you fancied? Well, I got that for Emily too. She rambled on and on, hoping I'd get mad. But I didn't care one bit. Instead, I said, if my little sister wants those things, it's only right you get them for her. My mom gritted her teeth. I even wrote a will, leaving everything to Emily after we're gone. You won't get a dime. She said it, looking all smug. But when I didn't react, she panicked and glanced back at Emily. Emily sat there, shaking her head in tears. My mom's face went white. I understood. If I stopped vying for attention, their so-called love points wouldn't add up, and the illness would just keep getting worse until it tortured her to death. My mom screamed hysterically, "You're going to let my daughter die like this? Just compete a little, will you?" Even my senior and the curious nurses were baffled. Never heard of competitive love affecting someone's lifespan. That's ridiculous. Then what's the point of having doctors? My mom didn't care about any of that. As long as something threatened her precious daughter, she'd lose her mind. She spilled, "Remember that hot search calling you ugly? I was behind that." She said she secretly paid a lot of money, insisting it had to be high profile. I knew that story. After being reborn, I remembered a lot of things. I even called the company responsible to ask. They said they were confused too because I seemed like just an innocent researcher. Targeting someone like me seemed unethical. What kind of grudge do you have? They were curious and asked her. I really hate her. My mom replied. With all the money she threw at it, I quickly became an internet scandal with everyone criticizing me. They even unearthed embarrassing photos of me from childhood with a runny nose. People who didn't know the truth flocked to my account, piling on with sarcastic comments. No wonder your parents don't like you. With looks like that, who would? Right, maybe you were so ugly when you were born that they abandoned you. The company head said he thought I was a medical professional and didn't want to go too far, but my mom insisted. Most of the hateful comments were actually her, hiding behind an anonymous profile. My own mother trashing me online. Before I would have been heartbroken, but now I didn't feel anything. Trying to provoke me? Not a chance. I smiled faintly and turned to my sister. You know, this illness of yours can be treated. Transplants, chemo, if you start treatment now there's a chance. But look at them, they're delaying, arguing. Seems like they don't really want to treat you. I always thought they loved you so much, but I guess not. My sister, fuming, looked at our parents. My dad and mom rushed to comfort her. In return, she lashed out at them. A family scene of arguing, crying, and laughing. What a circus. Amidst the chaos, I chimed in, it's not impossible to treat, you know. Dad's liver is perfect for a transplant. Silence followed. Especially my dad, whose face showed shock and awkwardness. I handed him the report. You two are a great match. Post-surgery success rates are high. It's worth trying. My sister sprang up from bed, excited. Dad, this means I'm saved. I'm gonna live. But I had to throw in a reality check. The donor usually suffers more. There's a significant impact on health. Data suggests liver function suffers post-transplant. But it's okay, Dad, you love her so much. This should be no problem, right? Finished speaking, I looked at my sister. Why are you hesitating? Ask Dad. You want to live so I can schedule the operation. If you wait too long, not even a miracle can save you. Fear-stricken, my sister knelt in front of him, her tearful eyes pleading, Dad, I don't want to die. Please save me. My dad was frozen still, unwilling. Love in theory was one thing, acting on it was another. Meanwhile, my senior took the opportunity to detail the transplant procedure. First, you'll need a series of pre-op tests. Oh, and a biopsy, which is like a needle into your spine touching the bone. My dad flinched. If everything's okay, then surgery can proceed. Most are done laparoscopic nowadays, and while any surgery carries risks, we'll try to keep mortality under 3%. My dad exclaimed, "There's a chance I could die." My senior nodded. Every surgery has its risks. Come on, if you're ready, let's start preparing. He pushed a stack of voluntary organ donation forms in front of my dad, asking for his signature. My dad froze. My mom didn't look any better. Only my sister was happy, continually urging, "Dad, sign it. Hurry." I almost couldn't help but laugh when I read this. I can imagine how exciting the drama will be. But it doesn't concern me. I've already secured my spot in the clinical trial. Next, I just need to send it to my advisor for review. Once it's approved, I can go abroad for further studies and stay away from all this drama. But just before I was about to leave, my older brother pulled me aside, insisting I witness a good show. At the time, my dad was sitting there with a grumpy face, giving blood. My mom was beside him, with an undeniable look of disappointment in her eyes. What's the deal with Emily? How can she be so thoughtless, pushing you to donate your liver every day? And if you don't do it, she threatens to post videos online. How is that right? It's just emotional blackmail. My dad sighed repeatedly, clearly agreeing with my mom's concerns. I used to adore her so much and had her in the palm of my hand. I never thought she'd press me like this. My brother told me that the day she was admitted, the hospital room was a mess. She was crying and yelling nonstop. It was always something that hurt or didn't feel right. Not just that, she demanded my parents' constant presence. They felt bad for their daughter initially, so of course they complied. But over time they were too old to handle it. And God forbid they hinted at wanting to leave or being tired, Emily's tears would flow instantly, making them feel guilty as if they'd done something wrong. Eventually, they just couldn't take it anymore. But little did they know, while they were venting, I had already called over their beloved daughter. Emily heard every word they said. "You guys," Emily was in tears and overwhelmed. "You always said you loved me. Is this how you love me?" She started crying and throwing a fit, sitting down right in the hospital hallway, drawing everyone's attention. My parents were embarrassed. "Emily, get up." My mom tried to pull her up. My dad added, "Yes, let's talk it over. Worst case, I'll buy you a liver." I nearly died laughing. Where do they think we live? Where organs are bought and sold? Though the black market is an option for a premium price. Money isn't the problem. My dad, full of confidence, checked his phone, only to see a balance of 38 cents. How can this be? My mom was frantic. "Were you robbed? Hurry, check it out." My dad nodded and did as told, but quickly realized every time money came in, it got transferred immediately to someone else's account. That person was Emily. They shifted their gazes to her. "Where's the money?" Emily looked down sheepishly. I found a handbag I really liked recently, so my parents were furious, calling her a fool. I said, "If you're set on transplanting, it'd be best to get the money ready soon. With what's in the bank not enough, maybe selling the house is an option. All it takes is a check and they're in for a big surprise." And so, under my guidance, my dad quickly discovered the house had been mortgaged without them knowing. Once again, those funds ended up in Emily's account. That was several million, you know? Even if Emily claimed she bought a handbag, they weren't buying it this time. "Tell us, where did the money really go?" My mom screamed, watching their lifetime savings disappear. My dad, without any hesitance, snatched her phone, initially aiming to trace where the money vanished, but unexpectedly found photos of Emily with her biological parents, looking all cozy together. There were many long call logs with them, each lasting at least an hour. Within these were some stinging remarks, like, "That old guy Suchong just annoys me," and "That old hag always clinging to me, it's exhausting." They're adults, yet still dependent. If it weren't for the cash, I wouldn't bother with them. Once I have the money, I'll dump them. The more my dad read, the darker his expression became. I stood on the side, silently enjoying the show. Disappointed? That was the daughter you loved for 20 years. Funny enough, that's something I only discovered in a past life when I was on death's doorstep. They hurried to save Emily and forgot about me. My phone was smashed, so I searched Emily's room for one to call for help. When I opened it, I saw pictures of them together and saw all their cozy conversations. That was when I realized she had been collaborating with her biological parents all along, draining the family financially, while at the same time stirring me to compete for affection, all to maintain her own good health. It's like our family was just a stepping stone in their path to wealth. I said with a smile, Mom, Dad, you've managed to raise a young billionaire with your bare hands, impressive. After that, their faces turned green. Emily protested, but it was no use. While they played favorites, they weren't fools. They instantly saw her as a traitor and stormed out. I thought this chapter would end here, but Emily actually found her way to me. She confronted me with the look of a victim, questioning why I did it. Almost made me laugh to death. What does this have to do with me? Emily glared at me like she wanted to devour me alive. Is it not all because of you? Why did you come back? I planned it so long, why did you return? I suddenly got it, no wonder. The orphanage is so close to home. How could they not have found me for 20 years? Turns out she was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Yeah, I told them you'd been dead, but you still managed to make it back. I nodded and then looked toward the door. Did you all hear that? Emily turned around to see the furious faces of our parents. Panicked instantly, it wasn't me. My mom didn't even hesitate, hitting her with a slap straight away. Wretch. 6. I treated you like a daughter all these years, and this is how you repay me? Emily cried out, feeling wronged. You treat me like a daughter? You always said you loved me the most, so why did you search for her? She's our daughter. Of course we had to find her. My dad shouted. This attitude made Emily break down. She screamed, that's bull. How could you possibly hurt your own daughter if you really loved her? That way she'd be too jealous, and I wouldn't even have to go through surgery. You're out of your mind. My dad couldn't understand her. They turned away in disappointment, reminding her to repay the money soon or face legal actions. Emily, clearly triggered, suddenly pulled out a lighter from her bag. I've already poured gasoline here. Who dares to leave? This scene reminded me of the things she had on her phone in my past life. I've earned enough points long ago, but no money yet. Might as well set a fire and kill them to inherit their property openly. So she started that fire back then. Her plan was to finish the game and take the money, and I was just a part of that game. Did she think she could do it again now? No way. I kicked the lighter away. It hit the ground and sparked a fire. Emily didn't have time to escape and got caught in the flames. Her screams of agony were non-stop. Though she was rescued later, she was pretty much ruined. I visited her once. She was half dead, wrapped up like a mummy. She needed regular dressing changes, ripping off old skin, a pain I could only imagine. But I told her I did it on purpose. In my past life, I was the one burned. I lay on a bed slowly dying for 3 months. The despair and agony, wanting to die countless times but unable to even commit the most basic suicide. I told her our lab is working on a new project for liver cancer, and we're close to a breakthrough drug. Maybe if you weren't opposing me so much, I might have helped. What a pity, I sighed. Now you'll suffer from burns and cancer pain. Just thinking about it makes me sad for you. Oh, and our hospital is the most humane. We're so worried you'll try to kill yourself that you're already tied up. Her eyes filled with fear and despair. I gave her a slight smile. That means even if you want to commit suicide, you can't. With that, I turned and left, leaving Emily to struggle and scream in pain alone in the room. That day, I packed my bags and headed to the airport. Unexpectedly, I ran into my parents there. They looked worn out, telling me they regretted everything. We never thought we'd be so wrong all these years. Jessica, we were wrong. We shouldn't have treated you that way. When Emily tried to burn us, it was you who saved us. I know you still care about us. Would you come back with us? You'll be our only daughter now, and we promise to treat you well. I refused immediately. They came to me only after seeing Emily's true colors. What if they didn't know? She'd still be their favorite. I'd still be the despised daughter. I said, don't get it wrong. I saved you only to repay a debt. From today I owe you nothing. Let's not meet again. Right in front of them I deleted all contact info, pulled out my phone's SIM card, and tossed it in the trash. Then I walked away. Even if they cried rivers of tears, I didn't look back. Not even once. The end.